When you think of James Bond, the movie star, super spy guy that's been, with these movies for years and years and years, you think of, that kind of adventurous intrigue, spy movie. You don't think of a guy running around with a gun just kind of shooting stuff. Yet that's kind of what James Bond has become synonymous with in the gaming world. Nintendo and Rare teamed up to make GoldenEye, which was kind of a landmark first-person shooter for consoles, did a lot of things that hadn't been done on a console before. And since then, the Bond license has migrated over to EA, but that hasn't really stopped EA from trying to recreate that kind of GoldenEye magic by putting the super spy into these really kind of generic action games. The last Bond game, Agent Under Fire, started to kind of inch away from this formula to include some more of the gadget stuff and try to generally provide a more well-rounded experience. NightFire is yet another step in this direction. It's definitely a first-person shooter first and foremost, but there's enough kind of little Bond touches here and there that you really kind of feel like you're wrapped up in a Bond movie. NightFire's main mode is a story-driven single-player campaign that spans through 12 different levels. It basically tells the story of a corporation known as Phoenix, which has been contracted to do things like disarm nuclear missiles and kind of clean up nuclear waste at old power plants. Like any good corporation, they're evil to the core, and they're, of course, taking all this stuff and they're going to use it to kind of take over the world. That's where James Bond comes in. Along the way, you'll kind of go through all those different kind of classic Bond moments. There'll be, a lot of women. Bond is always a womanizer, and in the game, he's kind of portrayed the same way, the real kind of suave, smooth, super spy kind of guy. And with the plot twists and kind of the way the story is told, it actually does a pretty good job at simulating the Bond movie experience. The single-player mission mode in NightFire is relatively short. The 12 levels don't really last all that long, and once you get past a few spots here and there that provide the game's real difficulty, it's a pretty smooth trip from beginning to end. The game's missions do a good job at giving you a lot of different things to do. Some missions will require you to behave with some stealth tactics, so you have to infiltrate an office building and put a virus in some computers, but you can't let the guards see you. Of course, you have tranquilizer darts, so you can just knock most of the guards out. But it's a refreshing change of pace. Also, kind of adding to that is you'll find driving levels in the game, and one level where your Aston Martin actually turns into a little submarine, and you'll be going underwater and fighting other subs and cool stuff like that. These things aren't particularly difficult or long. The driving sequences are definitely pretty straightforward, but they do a really nice job at breaking up the action and kind of giving you the feeling that you're James Bond, you're out there doing a lot of different stuff, instead of being stuck in just kind of the generic first-person shooter format. Graphically, the most impressive part about NightFire is the facial animation. Not just Bond himself, but the rest of the game's characters just look really great. They're really expressive in the face area, really good lip syncing for the speech, and Bond definitely looks better than the rest. They actually went out and they scanned Pierce Brosnan's face. There's a little kind of bit on it when you finish the game that plays. They took like 250,000 points of contact on his face or something to map it, but whatever technology they used, it worked surprisingly well. I mean, it straight up looks like Pierce Brosnan in the game, and he expresses himself facially just like Pierce Brosnan really would in the role of James Bond. So you'll see kind of that raised eyebrow sort of intrigue spy thing going on, and it's kind of like surprising. It's almost kind of scary. If they had gone ahead and gotten Pierce Brosnan's voice in the game and stuff like that, then it would have been an even better simulation. But as it is, that dude looks exactly like Pierce Brosnan, and it's almost creepy. The rest of the game also looks really great. The level design is definitely believable. So I mean, no matter where you go, if it's underwater or in space, you definitely kind of get the right sense of scale. The levels look definitely believably designed, so they feel kind of like real-world places. Lots of good use of textures, and this is an area where all three versions of the game really do look good. The Xbox version of the game is a little more stable frame rate-wise than the PlayStation 2 version, and it does look a little bit sharper. But the GameCube version and PlayStation 2 versions still look just as fantastic as you would expect them to look, given the relative difference in power between the three systems. NightFire also sounds really great. The music definitely contributes a lot to the cinematic feel of the game. It even kind of opens with its own theme song. All the James Bond movies kind of have their own theme, and there's a NightFire theme and a whole kind of opening sequence that really kind of looks like it was taken from a Bond movie, and that's definitely another nice touch. there's an awful lot of speech in the game, and while the James Bond voice isn't Pierce Brosnan's, or if it is, he was very sick that day, and the rest of the game's voices are actually very, very well done. You know, it's an area where a lot of games seem to flounder, is you know, getting believable voice actors and actresses, but NightFire definitely does the job here. In the end, the only real problem with NightFire is that the game is pretty short. You'll bust through that single player pretty quickly, and the incentive that they build in to get you to play it over and over again until you're really good at it, which is, you know, the unlockable skins and modes for multiplayer, aren't really a huge incentive. If you're after a multiplayer first-person shooter, there are plenty of games out there that do it better. Time Splitters 2, you know, clearly designed for that multiplayer first-person shooter experience, and that would be a better choice for people looking for that kind of continuation of the Bond first-person shooter line. But if you're a fan of James Bond, if you're a fan of the films, if you're kind of a fan of the stock kind of James Bond mythos, then you know, this is definitely a game you're going to want to check out.